Adanna's night vision had reinforced her resolve, imbuing her with a serene confidence that the path they were on was righteous and blessed. Inspired by the celestial message in her dream, Adanna felt a fire ignite within her, a certainty that her people needed to know the truth. The dream had spoken to her, the vision of angels and her ancestors singing filled her with a purpose she couldn't ignore. It was more than a revelation, it was a calling. But as much as the truth weighed on her, she knew the time wasn't right. The community wasn't ready for such a revelation. It would take patience, wisdom, and careful preparation. The strength she had drawn from the dream gave her hope. She would rally her people when the moment came, but for now she would wait. Like a seed planted deep in the earth, the truth would grow. When the time was right, it would blossom into something undeniable, something that could no longer be silenced. She resolved to prepare quietly, to learn, and to listen for the signs. The truth would come, and when it did, it would light the way for her people, just as the angels had lit her path in the dream. As the weeks stretched into months, Adanna's heart ached for Berko's return. The vibrant colors of Omutada seemed to dull under the weight of Adanna's sorrow. Each sunrise brought hope that Berko would return, and each sunset took a piece of that hope away, leaving her heart a little heavier. The villagers whispered in hushed tones, casting glances her way, their eyes filled with pity and not a little fear of Chief Okoro's tightening grip on the village. Chief Okoro, ever watchful and calculating, saw in Adanna's vulnerability an opportunity to reclaim the influence he had lost. His visits became more frequent, each one cloaked in the pretense of concern, but the underlying motive was clear: to bind Adanna to him and, through her, restore his tarnished authority. One afternoon, as Adanna tended to the small garden that had become her refuge, Chief Okoro approached her, his shadow falling over the bright flowers she so lovingly cared for. "Adanna," he began, his voice soft yet insistent, "you must face the truth. Berko is gone and he is not returning. You need protection and stability. I can provide that. You have no one else." Adanna stood up slowly, wiping her hands on her skirt, her back to the chief as she composed her face into a mask of detached politeness. "Chief, I need time. I cannot think of marriage while my heart still holds hope for Berko's return." "But how long will you wait for a ghost, Adanna?" Chief Okoro pressed, stepping closer. "It has been 6 months. The village needs stability and you need a husband." As more months rolled by and no word came from Berko, Adanna's resolve began to crack under the weight of her loneliness and the unrelenting pressure from Chief Okoro. With each passing day, the likelihood of Berko's return diminished, and the memory of his promise seemed like a distant dream. A year had passed. Finally, worn down by grief, the insistence of her family, and the relentless advances of Chief Okoro, Adanna agreed to marry him. It was a decision born of despair, a resignation to the circumstances rather than a choice made freely. The wedding was a somber affair, markedly different from the vibrant celebrations typical of Omutada. Adanna moved through the ceremonies like a specter, her heart and thoughts elsewhere. Chief Okoro, looking aged beyond his years, stepped behind Adanna as he placed the wedding necklace around her neck, a final symbol of their union to seal her to him forever. Adanna felt as if a noose were tightening around her future, her dreams of a life with Berko fading into the shadows. Just as all seemed lost, a figure, dusty and worn from travel, limped towards the gathering. The crowd parted, whispers turning into exclamations of disbelief and joy. Berko returned to Omutada just as the dry season began, when the dust stirred into the air with every step and the sun watched over the land with a relentless gaze. His journey had been arduous, but within his grasp, he carried the promise of vindication and the hope of a new beginning. As Berko entered the village, the sound of music and laughter greeted him, signaling a festivity in full swing. His heart beat faster as he scanned the crowd. In the distance he caught sight of Adanna. She stood with Chief Okoro, who was delicately fastening a necklace around her neck. A sense of unease prickled through Berko as he watched, his steps quickening toward them. "Adanna, I have it. The proof we need," Berko shouted, eagerly rushing through the crowd. He held up an envelope, the contents of which gleamed with the hope of justice. At the sound of Berko's voice, Adanna swiftly turned, her eyes widening with a mix of relief and anticipation. She broke into a run, her movement, sudden and urgent, snapped the necklace and it slipped from Chief Okoro's hands and fell to the ground. Without a second thought, Adanna flew into Berko's arms. They embraced tightly, a reunion of hearts and souls long separated by distance, trials and truth. The world around them faded, the noise of the festivity reduced to a hum as they clung to each other. For the first time that day, Adanna's heart, which had been numb through the ceremony's empty rituals, came alive. Her pulse raced with joy, her breath caught with the relief of his return. In Burko's arms she felt whole again, like a piece of herself had been restored. "Burko," she cried, her voice breaking the heavy silence that had fallen over the crowd. "I was so lost without you," Adanna confessed, her voice thick with emotion. "When you didn't return I feared the worst. And the chief, he pressured me. I had no one, I thought you were gone forever. I made a promise to you, Adanna. I will always find a way back to you, nothing can break us," Burko said. Adanna looked at him with curious longing, her voice soft but filled with the questions that had lingered in her heart for so long. "But where were you? Why did you stay away so long?" Burko's eyes flickered with a mixture of regret and resolve as he spanned the crowd, noticing the growing restlessness among the people. He hesitated, the weight of his absence heavy on his shoulders. He glanced at the crowd, sensing their impatience, but turned back to Adanna, his gaze softening. "But I should have come back sooner." The murmurs from the crowd grew louder, but in that moment, Burko's focus remained on Adanna, the connection between them unspoken yet undeniable. "I would have come back sooner if only I could." Adanna's brow furrowed as she stepped closer, her voice trembling with both curiosity and concern. "What do you mean, Burko? What are you not telling me?" "I will explain," Burko said, his voice steady, though his gaze shifted to Chief Okoro, who stood at the edge of the restless crowd. His eyes lingered on the chief for a moment. Burko's gaze didn't waver as he continued. "Adanna," Burko began, his voice filled with quiet determination as he stepped closer, "you know I've pledged to find the truth about the children they claim to be mine." Adanna's eyes searched his, her emotions a mixture of hope and uncertainty. "I know, Burko, but it's been so long and the rumors, they won't stop. I have proof," Burko declared, holding up the envelope for all to see. The crowd fell silent, their eyes fixated on the small but powerful object in his hand, curiosity thick in the air. Adanna's heart raced as she stared at the envelope. "Burko, what's in there?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper.